Rightio boys, the purpose of this video is to teach you how to lift, make sure your technique here in the gym is correct, how to warm up, how to train to failure, and also how long you should be resting between your sets. So by the time you've finished this video or video series, not only will you know more than 99% of the population of people you see here in the gym, but you'll also know how to make sure that every single workout, every set, every rep is intentional and has a purpose. And that purpose, of course, is muscle growth. Now, when it comes to your technique, we're looking at two main factors, your range of motion and your control. Now, obviously, every exercise in the gym is different, and that's why we have the video demonstrations. But when it comes to your range of motion, we are looking for standardization. That means the same starting position and ending position every single rep. Now, let's take this exercise for example. Not everyone will be able to get the barbell all the way down to their chest, although most of us will, let's be honest. What we don't want to see is, during your warm-ups, you're easily able to get the bar all the way down to your chest and then all the way up to lockout, but as you're using a heavier and heavier weight, all of a sudden, now we're just doing these half reps, right? All that shows us is that you are using too much weight. And you need to use less weight so that you can go through the full range of motion. Believe me, take my word for it, it is worth it from a muscle growth perspective. The other aspect of your technique is your control. Now, I don't prescribe tempo. So tempo would look like 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, pause, press. That would be a tempo of 3, 1, 1, 0. And that's a phenomenal tempo, by the way. That's a great tempo to use, but I don't want you counting out the seconds in your head, because that's going to take away from the effort you can put forth into, number one, counting your reps, number two, keeping the tension on the target muscle, and number three, pushing close to failure. So here's what we're going to do instead. On the up phase of the lift, this is called the concentric. So as we're pressing up, you are always going to give 95 to 100% effort. What we're doing by putting full effort into the concentric phase of the lift is we are recruiting all of the muscle fibers. And what's the best way to grow all of the muscle fibers? It's to recruit all of the muscle fibers. Then on the eccentric, that's the lowering phase all the way down, I want you to have so much control that if I said to you, stop, you could stop the weight. Now, obviously, this is going to get a lot harder as the weight gets heavier, as you get through your set and you're doing those final reps where your muscles are fatigued. But by having that high level of control, that's how we're going to put the most tension on the muscle, and that's where the muscle growth happens at the end of the day. So you've probably gathered by now that training close to failure is the thing which starts the muscle growth process. And in light of that, we have a different warm-up strategy than you may be used to using. I want you to use the philosophy, warm up as much as you need to, but as little as possible, because we are trying to save as much of our physical and mental energy for our working sets, because those are the sets which are close enough to failure to actually cause a muscle growth response. So let's go through an example. Let's say we're going to do this incline barbell bench press, and I'm going to do 80 kilos. So that is a 20 and a 10 per side. What you would see a lot of people potentially do is maybe they'd do the bar for 20 reps. Then they'd put a 10 kilo plate on each side, 40 kilos in total. They might do 10 reps again. Up to 60 kilos, another 10 reps. 70 kilos, 10 reps. Finally, they get to 80 kilos. How many reps are they going to get? Probably not as many as if they had done less of a warm-up. Now, don't hear me wrong. I'm not saying don't warm up whatsoever, but I'm saying that as you go through your increments, you should be doing fewer and fewer reps. So we have a 3-point warm-up checklist, so to speak. Get warm, get mobile, and get primed. Get warm just means, is your body literally warm? So if you live in a warm climate like I live here in the Gold Coast, it's almost never cold enough that when I walk into the gym, I would have to jump on the treadmill. But if you live somewhere in a much colder climate, then that is something you may have to do to get the blood flowing. The second is to get mobile.
What that means is, as I'm going through my reps, if I cannot comfortably get as deep as I want, I may need to go and do some sort of stretching or some sort of other exercise or mobility routine. Now, whilst we're on this topic, think about what you're doing when you are stretching. If I'm stretching this pec out, I'm essentially telling it to relax, relax, relax so that I can get into a deeper stretch. Sounds like a good thing, but if I'm then going to go over and do an exercise, if I've told that pec to essentially relax, now what's going to happen when I go and try to execute my lift? It's a conflicting thing essentially there, right? So rather than stretching statically, we want to stretch dynamically as much as possible. So instead of having you do this pec stretch, for example, I would have you doing maybe a cable or a band face pull. And you see we're kind of getting in that same position. We're stretching that area, but we're doing it in a more dynamic fashion rather than a static fashion. Now, with that being said, every muscle is different. For me, for example, for legs, I have to do a lot of stretching of that hip flexor there. Does that mean my quad, my quad gets a little bit of extra stretch on it, even statically? Yes, it does. And so for me, that's a trade-off that I have to make to even be able to get into a leg press or a hack squat or under a Smith machine or even a barbell for squats, for example. So every exercise is going to be slightly different, but remember the mantra, warm up as much as you need to and as little as possible. So let's go through this warm up now as I get through up to 80 kilos. What I'm going to do is the bar for just a few reps, and I like to, on my warm ups, really take long pauses, feel it out, really feel every single part of the range of motion, the start position, the end position, and everywhere in between. Then we'll go up to, say, 40 kilos, but you'll notice I'm not going to go and do 10 reps, 15 reps, anything like that. I'm just going to do 3 to 5 reps, get my nervous system primed to handle the weight that I'm about to use. The goal is not to fatigue the muscles during the warm-up sets. The goal is literally just to get the muscles and the CNS and the joints ready to handle the weight. Cool. So for the purposes of this video, I am naturally speeding things up a fair bit. I would probably take more like 30 seconds to a minute at least in between my warm-up sets as I'm working my way up, because if I didn't, they kind of end up not being much of a warm-up, don't they? Right, now what I'm going to do is, I'm actually going to do my working weight, but I'm not going to do a working set just yet. So this is optional, this is not something you have to do, but this is called a potentiation set. So what this is a set using either my working weight or often even slightly heavier than my working weight of just 1 rep. This is not for muscle growth. This is to potentiate the nervous system to handle the weight I'm about to use. So if I can do 1 rep here and it feels good, it feels fine, I'll rack it, I'll rest my 2 to 3 minutes. The next time I pick up this weight to do my first working set, it's just gonna feel a lot easier and a lot lighter. So we're gonna go into a set to failure next. I'm not going to use this exercise because this exercise, what happens if I fail? or the bar gets stuck. I have to roll it down. That's uncomfortable. We don't want that. That's why in your program, it says you have a 0 to 1 RIR target, 0 reps in reserve if it's safe for you to take the exercise there, 1 rep left in the tank if it is not safe. This would be an example of an unsafe exercise to take to failure unless you had a spot who you trusted a lot. All right, now we're just warming up using the same strategy we used before. I've gone just from no weight whatsoever, 1 plate, this would be 2 plates, just do a couple of reps. I think my working weight would be about 3 plates, maybe just over. I'm not sure if you can hear this, but at the bottom, I'm just going all the way until I can hear that little dink of the weight hitting the stopper there. Depends on your leverages, how long your arms are, and whether that is still within your active range of motion. But if you can get there on your warm-ups, then you also should be getting there as your working sets progress. Because if we just go shorter and shorter range of motion, we're using more weight, but we might be putting less tension on the muscle overall. So keep going up in weight, get towards this set to failure. On this one, I'm not going to do a potentiation set. Typically, we'll do a potentiation set if our working set is going to be somewhere in maybe the 6 to 12 plus rep range. What I'm going to try and find though is a weight that I can fail at around 5 or 6 reps. I think I'll get 5 and I might fail on the 6th. So if I did a potentiation set of just 1 rep at, say, my working weight, I mean, that's 1 rep, and if I'm gonna fail on 6 anyway, it's almost like a working set in the sense that it's really quite fatiguing, right? So this will be my last warm-up, and then I'll put maybe another 5 on, and that'll be the set that I'll take to failure. Cool, feeling good. Right, now normally I would rest, a good 2, 3, 4 minutes, right, before I'm gonna go ahead and do this working set. But because I just wanna hit this in 1 take for you, I'm just gonna drink this and then I'll take that set to failure. You got to concentrate, so feel free to take your time getting into the groove. I called that one pretty accurately, right? Said I'd fail on, I'd get 5 and I'd fail on the 6th. So one big thing I want you to notice about that set was even as the reps got hard, right, as my muscles fatigued, I'm still controlling it with the same level of control on the eccentric on the way down. I'm still getting the same range of motion, right? Heard that little clink at the bottom of every single rep, and not just on every rep, but the last rep. So even when I'm pushing, I've realized I've failed, I'm not gonna get that rep, I still wanna control it as much as I can on the way down, because we've done all of the work to get to the point of high motor unit recruitment, which is where we're very close to failure. As many of the muscle fibers as possible are recruited or activated. Don't go and throw it away by just dropping the weight off, right? So that's training to failure. Again, remember, you don't need to do this for every exercise. On machines like this, you should be doing it every single working set. On barbell exercises where it's not as safe to do so,
You don't need to be training to failure every single set.
So you've just completed your first set to failure, and now you're wondering how long you should rest between now and your next set. Longer than you think. You will intuitively want to rest 60, maybe 90 seconds and then go again. The problem with doing that is we are then prioritizing volume ahead of intensity. So I got 5 reps on that set there. When I go in for my next set, I really would be looking to either match 5 reps again or potentially get 4 reps. But I would not want to see a really big drop off in the number of reps. That would be a sign that I would be under recovered. So you'll have to test this for yourself as we go over time. But one thing you will notice is that you'll probably be surprised the program I've given you is lower volume than what you are used to or have done in the past, right? So fewer sets per exercise and probably fewer exercises per muscle group too. And that is because we focus on quality first, quantity second. If just doing more and more and more and more and more volume worked, then we wouldn't see people who have been in the gym for years and years and years and years, but they still look the same. They're in there, they're doing the sets, they're doing the reps, but they don't have the required intensity. They're not training close enough to failure to meet that muscle growth threshold. So it's always better that you rest longer, even longer than you feel you need to, so that you can go into your next set, give full effort, full intensity, train very, very close to failure again. As a general rule, rest until you feel about a 7 out of 10 recovered. So you don't need to be a full 10 out of 10 recovered. For example, for me, if I was going to go and do that set again, I got 5.5 reps. I would only log it as 5, of course. For me to get 5 reps again, that may require a 3, a 4, even a 5-minute rest period. But if I just rest 3 minutes, maybe I can get 4 reps, for example. That might be good enough. That's a 7 out of 10 recovered. Using the rest until you feel about a 7 out of 10 recovered framework, it also covers every different exercise, because if you go and do a hard set of chest press machine, okay, that takes up some mental and physical energy. There's a little bit of fatigue associated with that. Definitely more than if you did a tricep push down, for example, but it's absolutely nothing on a hard set of hack squats, Smith machine squats, or even leg press when we go deep and heavy the way we do, right? And so with those big lower body exercises, you will understandably take more rest, because you will need more rest until you feel a 7 out of 10 recovered. Then on those smaller exercises, tricep push down, bicep curls, lateral raises, so on and so forth, if you do feel a 7 out of 10 recovered after, say, 90 seconds to 2 minutes, then that's completely fine. You can go again then. Just note that if you do see a very high drop off, so on your first set of laterals, for example, you got 20 reps and then you rested 2 minutes, and your next set you got 11 reps and then 4 reps or something ridiculous like that, that's a good sign that you're not resting long enough. This is something that I will definitely help you with though, as I'm assessing your training log as we go. But just remember, rest until you feel around a 7 out of 10 recovered, and you're golden. Give it everything for your next set.